Elephant Pie by Hilda. Offen. What do you think is going to happen in this story, just by looking at the cover?
Snappers. And Edward.
Edward. What's he doing?
Bring them the pie.
And what do you think they're doing in this picture? Elephant Pie by Hilda Offen. What would you like for your birthday, my dearest dear? Asked Mr. Snipper Snapper. A party, said Mrs. Snipper Snapper, and a cherry pie with lots and lots of custard. She was so excited that she burst into tears. The Snipper Snappers were a very weepy family. Splish splash, Mr. Snipper Snapper ran to fetch the mop. Then he looked up pies in the telephone book. Hold on, let's get the camera in the right place. Ting-a-ling! Mrs. Elephant answered the phone. The Snipper Snappers want a birthday pie, she told her children. Please let me help, said Edward. No, Edward, said his mother. You muddle things up. Last time you put pepper in the pastry. Mrs. Elephant fetched a bowl of cherries from the larder. Want some, said baby Jojo. Not now, Jojo, said Mrs. Elephant. Go and play with your building bricks. Mrs. Elephant rolled the pastry. She made the pie in her biggest dish and popped it in the oven. When the pie was cooked, Mrs. Elephant set it on the table to cool. Then she iced it and decorated it with candles and marzipan roses. Now for the washing, said Mrs. Elephant. You can help me if you like, Edward. Can you see them outside? But what's baby Jojo doing? Building some steps. Doop, 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 doop. Doop, 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 doop. But when they came back, Jojo had disappeared. Can you see in this picture what happened to baby Jojo? How did she disappear?
She went into the cave.
Oh dear. Naughty Jojo. Where could she be? They looked in the cupboards. No Jojo. They looked under the beds. No Jojo. They looked in the laundry basket. No Jojo. Mrs. Elephant was frantic. Oh dear, could Jojo have gone out of the gate again? She cried. Oh dear, Edward, you'll have to deliver the pie. Oh dear, I mustn't forget the custard. But Mrs. Elephant was so flustered, she muddled the mustard with the custard. She made the custard out of mustard. Ma'am, said Edward, you've made a mistake. They look very similar. This one says custard, and this one says mustard. But they taste very different.
But why?
Custard is sweet, and mustard is a little bit spicy. Mrs. Elephant was too hot and bothered to listen. She loaded the pie into the wheelbarrow and put the custard into Edward's rucksack. Keep a lookout for your sister, she said. Then she ran off up the lane, doop, 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 calling, Jojo, Jojo. Edward set off with the wheelbarrow. Jojo, he called, where are you? We've seen her up that pine tree, shrieked some parrots. Edward went to look. While he was gone, the parrots pecked all the candles off the pie. Then they flew away. "Jojo," called Edward as he went through the wood. A bear ran out from amongst the trees. "I've seen her near the pond," it said. Edward went to look. While he was gone, the bear ate all the marzipan roses. Then it ran away. Edward came to a field. "Jojo," he called. A donkey leaned over the hedge. "I've seen her in that ditch," it said. Edward went to look. While he was gone, the donkey nibbled away most of the pie frill. Then it galloped off. The pie looked dreadful. "Perhaps the snipper-snappers won't notice," said Edward to himself. He trundled the wheelbarrow up to their front door and knocked. Would you like to knock on the door? Oh. Mr. Snipper-snapper opened the door. "Your pie," said Edward. Mr. Snipper-snapper stared. Mrs. Snipper-snapper stared. The aunties and uncles and all the little snipper-snappers stared. "This," cried Mrs. Snipper-snapper, "this is my birthday pie!" She began to sob. Her tears splashed onto the doorstep and trickled away down the path. Mr. Snipper-snapper snatched the pie and slammed the door in Edward's face. "Boo-hoo!" sobbed Mrs. Snipper-snapper. "Boo-hoo!" wailed the aunties and uncles. "Boo-hoo!" roared the little snipper-snappers. What a row! Jojo opened one eye. She had eaten all the cherries and fallen fast asleep. Now she yawned. She stretched. The pie crust began to crack. "Oh!" gasped the snipper-snappers as Jojo burst out of the pie. "Wah!" screamed Jojo. "I want my mom!" When Edward heard his sister's voice, he ran and peeped through the window. And what did he see? He saw Jojo sitting in a pie dish. And he saw the snipper-snappers crowding round and clicking their terrible teeth. "Never mind the cherries, my dear," he heard Mr. Snipper-snapper say. "We'll have elephant pie instead."
Uh-oh.
What do you think they're thinking?
They're thinking no mustard.
What do you think about their tongues hanging out there?
They think they're gonna eat Jojo up.
"Oh dear! Oh dear," thought Edward. "What'll I do?" Then he had an idea. "Don't you want your custard?" he said. "The custard! The custard!" squealed the snipper-snappers. Mrs. Snipper-snapper snatched the jug and tipped it over Jojo's head. Slippity-slop! Down poured the custard over Jojo's ears, over her tummy, and into the pie dish. Said Mrs. Snipper-snapper. "I love custard." She leaned forward and took a big sip. All the other snipper-snappers did the same. Oh, they shrieked as the mustard in the custard burned their tongues. Tears sprang to the snipper-snappers' eyes and poured to the floor. Soon they were knee-deep in water. "Boo-hoo!" they yowled. What do you think is going to happen in this picture? Look,
Rat.
look at baby Jojo. Boo-hoo, they yelled. Their tongues were on fire. The more they cried, the higher the water rose. It reached the tabletop, and away floated Jojo on the pie dish across the room and out the window. Edward put her in the wheelbarrow and ran. He ran and he ran and he didn't stop running until he reached home. Mrs. Elephant was overjoyed to see her baby safe and sound. "Well done, Edward," she said. She gave Jojo a bath and washed off all the mustard custard. Then she tucked her
You
into
did a farty.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
Oh dear. I was very busy reading, and that's a farty kiss on my face. It's a sloppy farty kiss. But she let Edward stay up late.
You did the
And
farty.
she let him make a pie of his very own. It was a strawberry pie with cream on the top, and they had it for supper. "It's a perfect pie," said Mrs. Elephant. "It's the best pie I've ever tasted." The end.